The train has returned to motion. I hold the box tightly and realize that I don't know where I'm going. But I don't really care. I care about the places that I'm not going. To know if I would like the next station more than the following one, even though I'm not getting off there. Risk is somewhat uncomfortable to carry. So much that I think the train should only have one stop, an origin and a destination. Like airplanes. But why doesn't anybody speak of the dark side of liberty? Few people can do that. To be responsible for your miseries is something very, very heavy to carry. Too much for too many people. Everybody catches the same airplane. When the train stops only once, you may or may not like this station. You can complain about the city and curse the country where you've arrived, but your conscience is tranquil. The weight of this responsibility is passed off to a huge and monstrous thing called society. You wash your hands with putrid water, and you move freely in the only station where you've been allowed to get off. I don't blame anyone, because everything has its price and its explanation. It was summer, and nightfall was near. My parents had left, and nobody was around. It was almost time for dinner, and I felt the pleasant sensation of not having anybody looking over my shoulder. I ran to the garage to get my blue bike. My parents had firmly prohibited me from leaving our town. I had always obeyed them until that summer day. I knew what would be waiting for me when I came back, but for some reason, this time, the threat was not enough. I remember the ride perfectly. It was just a few miles, but it seemed like an eternity. For the first time, I felt freedom, a whole world in front of me, a real life. I had never had such a pure and virgin sensation. And now, when for some reason I feel free, I often return to that moment. I know that the world I enter each night is one where I belong, the one that differentiates me from the others. Everything exists in its pure form, using symbols that in a primordial experience that my mind gave a face and a shape, a word that already existed. It is the world of senses, understanding, inner concepts, basically what I had come to create and be. One day, when I was 5 or so, my father and I found 2 small mice on the floor. They didn't move. They didn't make noise. They didn't do anything. I asked my father why they laid there motionless, and he told me they had gone to heaven. What a joke. I could see them there on the floor. So from what I understood, smashed mice turned into birds. Those birds that flew around, stopping every morning in the trees of the patio to explain their tragic story. Everything made sense. When my grandma died, suddenly it hit me that all of us would turn into birds someday. It wasn't a bad destiny, although I've never been a fan of heights. But when I found a dead bird, I didn't understand. It was as if my world caved in around me, that goddamn bird. I came face to face for the first time with nothing. Emptiness. Non-existence. There was no use for religion after that. I'm just a mouse waiting to be smashed. Someone who dreams with birds each time he fears death. I frequently like to look for old photos. The older the better, and I meticulously analyze the expressions of those people who are now gone. I try to imagine what they would have been thinking about in that moment, what had happened to them that day, what they wanted out of life, and what they found. The complicity that I feel when looking at human actions is always more intense than the feeling of repulsion. I am not going to be the one who discovers how we should behave. I am not going to clarify, and I am not going to make a joke out of myself, as so many have before me. The melody is heard time and time again, and we cover our ears to understand. What we need to do is listen. Keep in mind that the melody that you hear is not the same as the one heard by others. If you are able to do this, you have it made. You will be able to create, to see the finished work, and to arrive at the end before death and not the other way around. I don't want to die before I'm finished, holding on to life with the sensation that I've left many things undone. No. That is why I'm leaving. At 24, I am way too young to think about what I could have been instead of what I can be. And if the day comes that I no longer think this way, it will be because I lost something along the way. Nobody deserves that torture. I clearly remember when my parents built that house. I would have been 10 or 11 years old at the time, old enough to perceive the excitement that was behind every single brick. I perceived it, but I didn't understand it. Why did my father have to go collect the stones for the garden? Why didn't he just buy them? That house, those streets, and the forest were everything to my father. They were the culmination of a dream, the payback for a whole life of work. Sometimes he would wake up when it was still dark out and go out onto the terrace. Just before the sun rose, he would wake my mother and I up. When people tell me that I remind them of him, I think back to these times and I feel proud. From the terrace to the east, you could see the forest that he liked to wander around in and get lost. This was the same place where he made important decisions with my mother and where he taught us, first my brother and later me, to ride a bicycle. The beautiful aesthetic of seeing the sun rise over the tree tops was true happiness, silent moments that lasted for an eternity. The other day, after many years, I returned to the forest. I had to reconcile something within myself and make a decision for once and for all. But what I found wasn't what I was expecting. I felt as though I was at the doors of hell. Both sides of the path where I learned to ride a bike were surrounded by nothing. I felt scared and impotent. It was unfair that I had to see that. For the first time in my life, I was happy that my father was no longer alive, and that he was lucky to have had a place where he could go and stay forever. I had never, until this moment, had such a clear idea of what was heaven and what was hell. Seeing this cadaver all around me made me realize how dreams change from one generation to the next, how they are born and how they die. I realized that the forest was the most important thing in the world to my father, and that while it was a starting point for me, I had to look for my own forest, because I know that it exists, even if it is not made up of trees. The train has returned to motion. I look out the window and see how the colors move, how they combined, and how they try to get my attention. The click of my eye is enough to mortalize this slaughter called the world, where nothing is the same as it was 5 minutes ago, and I am not going to give in so easily. I dream as I remember, but I also remember as I dream. The imagination only colors pictures that we want to see again. I'm in a difficult moment of having to select and choose, and there can't be space for memories shared by millions of television viewers, nor thousands of tourists, nor hundreds of neighbors, not even dozens of passengers on a train. What the fuck? We're talking about my life here. The memories that I keep with me, the ones that tug at me, and the ones that I try to hide. They fit in a shoebox. A box that was empty and that I will go filling, little by little, with clues. Clues to which I have to be loyal if I want to get somewhere and someday complete my collection.